Dear friends, today we have an extraordinary testimony that challenges our understanding of what's possible. One of our viewers shares how a devastating car accident left him paralyzed from the waist down with a severed spinal cord. But after a reluctant visit to church and a mysterious vision, something happened that medical science cannot explain. Listen to Thomas's journey from bitter skepticism to miraculous healing, and share your thoughts in the comments below.
Hello there, my name is Thomas Mercer. I'm 42 years old from Ashland, Ohio. What I'm about to share with you happened in 2019, and I still can't fully explain it. I was never the type to believe in miracles. I grew up going to church because my parents made me, but by the time I hit college, I drifted away from all that. I figured if God was real, he'd make himself obvious. Otherwise, why bother? I had a decent life. Good job as an electrical engineer, nice house. I was divorced, but that was ancient history by then. I had my routines and I was content enough. Then came November 12th, rainy Tuesday evening. I was driving home from a late meeting just past 8:30. Roads were slick. I remember checking my phone for a text from my sister Sarah, just a quick glance. That's all it took. I didn't see the truck that ran the red light until it was too late. They told me later I was T-boned at 50 miles per hour. The impact crushed the driver's side door and sent my car spinning across the intersection. I don't remember much after the airbag deployed, just fragments. The taste of blood, someone yelling to call 911, the rain on my face when they cut me out of the car. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. The doctors were using words like spinal cord trauma and complete paraplegia. I couldn't feel anything below my waist, nothing, like someone had turned off half of my body. The MRIs showed my spinal cord was severed at the T10 vertebra. Clean cut, no ambiguity. Dr. Reynolds, my neurologist, sat at the edge of my bed with that look doctors get when they're about to destroy your life with words. Thomas, he said, I need you to understand that this injury is permanent. You will not walk again. Those first few months were brutal, just brutal. I was angry all the time at the other driver, at myself for checking my phone, at God if he existed, which I was pretty damn sure he didn't. What kind of God would let this happen? I had to sell my 2-story house and move into a single-level apartment. I had to learn how to do everything differently, catheterize myself, transfer from wheelchair to bed without falling, all while dealing with phantom pains in legs I couldn't feel. I pushed away friends who tried to help, started drinking too much, lost my job when the short-term disability ran out. By summer, I was a mess, a bitter, angry, self-pitying mess. My sister Sarah was the only one who wouldn't give up on me. She'd come over twice a week, clean up the apartment, make sure I was eating something besides frozen dinners. She never lectured me about my attitude, but she never enabled it either. Then one Sunday in August, she showed up at 9 in the morning. Get dressed, she said. We're going out. I figured she meant breakfast or something. But when she started driving toward Faith Community Church, I lost it. No way, absolutely not. Turn the car around. She just kept driving. Thomas, it's been 8 months. You need to be around people again. And this community might help you. I told her exactly what I thought of church people and their empty platitudes about God's plan. She just nodded and kept driving. I refused to let her push my wheelchair, stubborn pride. So I wheeled myself through the main doors, my shoulders burning with the effort. People smiled at me, that uncomfortable smile people give when they don't know what to say to the guy in the wheelchair. I hated it. I hated being a curiosity, an object of pity. I positioned myself at the very back, as far from the altar as possible. Sarah sat beside me, but she didn't try to make me participate. The music started, people stood, I stayed in my chair, staring at the floor, counting the minutes until I could leave. Pastor Mike was talking about healing. Of course he was. The universe has a sixth sense of humor that way. I tuned him out and focused on the exit sign. That's when the strangest thing happened. The lights in the sanctuary seemed to dim, but at the same time, everything became clearer somehow, like I was seeing through HD glasses. A warmth started at the top of my head and flowed downward like someone pouring warm honey over me. I thought I was having a stroke, but I wasn't scared, just curious. Then suddenly, I wasn't in the church anymore. I was standing in a garden I'd never seen before. Sunlight filtering through trees, the scent of jasmine, and a voice, neither male nor female, but somehow both, said simply, "Thomas, rise and believe." And then I was back in church. Pastor Mike was still talking. Sarah was still beside me. No one was looking at me strangely, so whatever had happened, it hadn't been visible to anyone else. I felt disoriented, confused. I figured it must be the pain meds I was on. Maybe I'd fallen asleep and dreamed it. When the service ended, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I was quiet on the ride home. Sarah asked if I was okay, and I lied and said I was just tired. That night, I took my meds and went to bed early, trying to forget the whole thing. I fell asleep thinking about that garden, about standing in it, about how real it had felt, about that voice. I woke up at exactly 6:17 the next morning. Something was wrong. Different. I felt heavy. That's the only way I can describe it. Parts of me that had been weightless for 8 months suddenly had mass again. I reached down to adjust my legs, routine movement by then, and I felt my hand on my thigh. I felt it. I froze. This couldn't be happening. Slowly, carefully, I pinched my thigh and felt pain. I moved my toes. They moved. I started shaking, hyperventilating. I threw back the covers and stared at my legs. My useless, paralyzed legs, except they weren't useless anymore. I gripped the edge of the bed with both hands, my heart pounding in my chest. With a deep breath, I swung my legs over the side and put my feet on the floor. I could feel the cool hardwood against my soles. I pushed myself up, bracing for the fall that seemed inevitable. But I didn't fall. My legs trembled like a newborn colt's, but they held me. I stood there, tears streaming down my face, afraid to move, afraid this was some cruel dream I'd wake from. Then I took one step, and another, and another. I walked to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. The haggard, bitter man I'd become stared back, but with something new in his eyes. Wonder. I called Sarah first, my voice breaking, as I tried to explain. She thought I was having some kind of breakdown. "I'm coming over," she said. "Don't try to get out of bed, Thomas." I laughed through my tears. Too late for that. When she arrived 20 minutes later, I met her at the door, standing. She dropped her purse on the floor, her mouth open in shock. "Thomas? How is this? This isn't possible." I nodded. "I know." And she helped me back to the couch. I was still unsteady, and immediately called Dr. Reynolds. He agreed to see me that same morning. The look on Dr. Reynolds' face when I walked into his office with just a cane for support is something I'll never forget. Professional detachment gave way to naked astonishment. "This defies all medical explanation," he kept saying as he examined me. He ordered new MRIs, blood work, neurological tests. I sat through them all, still half convinced this was temporary, that whatever miracle had happened would reverse itself. But the results were undeniable. My spinal cord, which had been completely severed 8 months ago, showed signs of regeneration that should have been impossible. The scans from November and the scans now looked like they came from 2 different people. The news spread quickly. Local papers wanted interviews. A medical journal requested permission to document my case. People from church, people I'd never even met, brought food to my apartment and asked to pray with me. I wasn't ready for any of it. I needed time to process what had happened, to understand it myself before I tried to explain it to others. Sarah respected that. She ran interference, kept people away, gave me space. But one evening, about a week after my healing, she asked the question I'd been avoiding. Thomas, do you think this was, you know, a miracle? I didn't answer right away. The engineer in me wanted a rational explanation, misdiagnosis, spontaneous recovery, medical error, but I knew what I'd experienced in that church. The vision, the garden, the voice telling me to rise and believe. I think, I said slowly, that something happened that science can't explain, and I'm not sure what to do with that. Sarah smiled. Maybe you don't have to do anything with it right now. Maybe you just need to accept it. But I couldn't just accept it. I needed to understand. I started researching other cases of spontaneous healing, found nothing comparable. I reached out to neurologists at research hospitals. They were fascinated but had no explanations. I even contacted skeptics, people who debunk miracle claims, half hoping they'd give me a rational answer. They suggested I'd never been properly diagnosed in the first place. But I had the MRIs, the documentation, the wheelchair I no longer needed. Exactly 2 weeks after my healing, I went back to Faith Community Church. Alone this time, I sat in the same spot at the back. Pastor Mike noticed me and nodded but didn't make a fuss. I listened differently this time, heard things I'd missed before. After the service, when most people had left, I approached him. I need to talk to you about something that happened to me here, I said. He invited me to his office, offered me coffee, and just listened as I told him everything. The accident, the paralysis, the vision in church, the impossible healing. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Thomas, he finally said, I believe you experienced something sacred, something beyond our understanding, but I don't think the question is why this happened to you. I think the question is, what will you do with it? I didn't have an answer for him. Not then. It took me weeks of physical therapy to regain my full strength. Months of questioning, of wrestling with what had happened. I spoke with theologians, with doctors, with other people who claimed to have experienced miracles. Some of their stories rang true. Others seemed like wishful thinking. I couldn't reconcile it all. Then came the letter. It arrived 6 months after my healing, forwarded through my neurologist's office. It was from a 16-year-old boy named Jason in Cincinnati who had been paralyzed in a diving accident. He'd heard about my case from his doctor. I don't know if what happened to you was a miracle, he wrote, but hearing about it gave me something I'd lost, hope. Could you tell me more about your experience? I sat with that letter for 3 days before I replied. What could I say to this kid that wouldn't create false expectations, that wouldn't set him up for disappointment if his own miracle never came? In the end, I decided to simply tell him my truth, my complete story, including my doubts and questions, and I offered to visit him if he wanted. 2 weeks later, I was sitting beside Jason's hospital bed. He didn't look like his accident had broken him the way mine had broken me. There was a light in him that I recognized, the same light I'd seen in that garden vision. As we talked, I realized something profound. Jason didn't need me to give him answers. He didn't need me to explain the inexplicable. He just needed to know he wasn't alone, that someone else had traveled this road, that whatever happened, miracle or no miracle, there was a path forward. I ended up visiting Jason every month, watching him work harder in physical therapy than I ever had, seeing him graduate high school from his wheelchair with honors, witnessing his determination not to let his injury define him. And somewhere along the way, I found my purpose. I started a support group for people with spinal cord injuries, not promising miracles, not offering false hope, just creating a space where people could share their journey, their struggles, their small victories, where no one had to feel as alone as I had. I went back to church too, not because I suddenly had all the answers, but because I'd learned to live with the questions, to accept that some things can't be explained by science or logic. that mystery isn't the enemy of faith, but its foundation. Dr. Reynolds still monitors me. He's published papers about my case. Medical researchers have studied me, tried to identify what made my healing possible, hoping to replicate it for others. So far, they haven't found anything special about me or my injury that explains it. Sometimes I feel guilty about that, about being the one who walked away from paralysis when so many others can't. Jason helped me with that too. Your healing doesn't diminish my struggle, he told me once. It just reminds me that we don't know everything, that the world is full of possibilities we can't imagine. It's been 3 years now since that Sunday in church when something impossible happened. I still don't have a neat explanation for it. I still have moments of doubt, moments when I wonder if tomorrow I'll wake up and my legs will be useless again, but those moments are fewer now. What I do have is gratitude and purpose, and a story that might help others find their own way through darkness. When people ask me if I believe in miracles now, I tell them this. I believe there are moments when the boundary between what we think is possible and what actually is possible becomes thin, permeable. Whether you call that science we don't understand yet, or the hand of God, or something else entirely, that's up to you. I'm not here to convert anyone. I'm just here to share what happened to me, to tell you that when I was at my most faithless, something extraordinary occurred. Something that reminds me every day when I take a step, when I walk in the park, when I visit Jason or attend a support group meeting, that there is more to this world than what we can prove or measure or understand. And sometimes the most profound healing begins when you're at your most broken. That's my story. Make of it what you will. But whatever you believe, I hope you remember this. In our darkest moments, when all seems lost, there's always the possibility of dawn, of light breaking through in ways we never expected. I know because I've seen it, I've lived it, and not a day goes by that I don't marvel at the simple miracle of putting one foot in front of the other and walking forward into whatever comes next. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thomas's story shows us that even when medical science says impossible, God says, I am possible. What are your thoughts on this extraordinary healing? We'd love to hear your reflections in the comments, or if you have your own miraculous testimony to share, please email us at the address in the description. May this story strengthen your faith and remind you that the God who healed Thomas is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Blessings to you all.